Okay, welcome back to Through It All. This is still a work in progress, so we're figuring it out little by little. Today I again am super grateful to have my really good friend Naomi and Naomi Sorensen. We've been friends for I don't even know how long, over a decade probably since junior high, and now we're in our mid 20s. Um, I've known Naomi forever, and she's always been um like an anchor for Christ in my life. And we've had so many good conversations over the years. And I asked if she'd be on, and she said yes. She has, I think, a lot of great stories. Today, we're going to talk about one that I think is fairly unique to her, and probably not just to her, but I don't know anyone else who's been through the things that she's been through. So I'm going to send the time over for her to talk about that. Thank you for being here.
Of course, thanks for having me. Um, yeah, so I guess we'll just talk about it then. A little bit about the background of my story for the specific moment in my life that we kind of talked about is, and I know you know, but obviously for the audience, but um, back in 2022, I think it was. Yeah, 2022, I had been dating and got engaged to this guy, and everything was perfect. Like, I don't think we had a single fight, and we just were both super adventurous and climbing, and we just did everything together every day. We were down at college studying. We were both art majors, and we're just honestly like taught like cloud nine. Like life was just so great. I had never really thought about getting married that early in my life, but with him, it felt like that's all I wanted to do. And so we did. We got engaged. We didn't get married, but spoiler, we didn't. We got engaged, but randomly out of the blue one day, he just broke up with me, and it was in the temple nonetheless. We broke up in the celestial room. He just looked over at me, and I had been inviting him to go to the temple frequently. That was just a big part of my routine, and I had invited him this one time, and he just kind of looked over at me and said, "I can't do this anymore," and broke up with me in the celestial room. Um, and that was obviously a big change in my life. It was a little bit of a heartbreaking moment. Like I waited. I didn't want to cause a scene, and I'm very emotional, so I decided to walk out of the celestial room, and I drove him there, and I waited for him in the waiting room. He took an extra 30 minutes and finally met up with me, and I dropped him off at his house, and I said, "I'll bring the ring by later and with your stuff." And that was kind of the end of that big drama for a little bit, but it just came to find out that I had bought my wedding dress earlier that week, and I had invited my what was soon to be future mother-in-law with me, and I had tried on in modest dresses, and at the time had gotten a wedding dress that was sleeveless with the intentions of putting sleeves on it, but I don't think she understood that, and, um, it turned into a huge drama with the family of them questioning his decision to marry me to see if I was worthy enough to be in the church and all of those things. And I mean, I have a mom that's inactive in the church, and my parents have been very light about it. They've never really forced us to go to church, but I served a mission. I chose to go to the temple weekly. Like I did all those things that I thought I was making the right decisions. And yes, I do have disagreements with the church, but it's not like my heart's like, I'm fully into this. I live it day by day kind of thing, you know? And so it was definitely like a shot to my heart and a shot to my testimony for someone that I knew or I thought knew me so well to think so little of me and to was willing to risk eternity for that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean, yeah, since we've been friends so long, I was there like when all of this was going down, and it was, I mean, obviously a lot for your friend to come to you and be like my fiance broke up with me. Like I didn't really know what to say to her. Like I remember like the helplessness that I felt in the moment versus like I can't imagine what you were feeling, like millions times more. Um, do you feel you were raised in the church and things, so how do you feel that um your foundation of your testimony had prepared you for this to happen? Because obviously no one I think is ever prepared for this. I mean, we grew up in the church, and I think every person dreams of finding someone to spend the rest of their life with, and then eternity with. Like that's a, like that's everyone's dream. We all want to be wanted and loved, and I think once you find that, you're not really ever expecting to have that end, especially before it even starts. Like that's probably pretty traumatic and confusing. So when all of that was going down, where did your testimony go, and how had the past and your mission and those things built you up to a point where you still wanted to talk to God? I mean, were you still talking to God when all this was happening, or were you just mad? That was a lot of questions, so pick
No,
which
it's
one.
okay. Um, I mean, one, you were, I think, the first friend that I told because you just happened to call me the day after it happened. And I answered, and I don't even think I lasted 2 seconds without crying into the sun. So I like, yeah, having support there was huge, but I was mad on this thought. I wasn't mad at first. I felt shot that I did something wrong and it was my fault completely. Um, and it took me a long time to start to feel anger towards God because I felt like after a while, I then started to feel like I did everything right to deserve an eternal marriage and it was taken from me is what I had felt like. Um, but before that anger came in, I was talking to God. It was almost so natural for me, and I'm grateful that it was so natural for me because I don't think it's natural for a lot of people to turn to God. And the only place that I knew, like I couldn't sit and pray to him like I would, but I just felt so emotional that I was blocking any like spiritual feelings that I was getting.
Mm.
Um, and so I went to the temple and I was going to the temple probably twice a day for like 3 weeks straight, just because it was the only place that I felt like I could breathe. Everywhere else, like it's so weird. I literally could not breathe. Like it hurt. It felt like I was getting a shock in my chest every time I took a deep breath. Um, and so the temple was the only place where I could escape that. And I just started like, luckily the semester had ended. It was Christmas break. So I was going to all the temples around Utah, just trying to get a different experience. And I started inviting friends with me and it, it was good, but it wasn't like, and I started getting little answers, but it wasn't like, Naomi, this is what was the issue here. Because at the time, I didn't really know the full story of why he had broken up with me and the feelings. Like, he kind of just cut all communication with me for a while. And I was just kind of left in what felt like the dark, although I know God was there with me. And so Temple was a huge
But
one. Go for it.
I just like you knew God was there, but you couldn't feel him all the time. Like go on that a little bit. I think that's probably something that a lot of people experience, but maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, in my personal experience, is like I have the doctrinal understanding of like Christ is always there, but like when you're in the midst of like in the middle of something very challenging or hard, I think a lot of the times, I think a lot of the time it is just emotions are we cutting ourselves off from him because he doesn't leave, but it's like, what made you know he was still there? Because I'm sure that was just really dark.
Yeah. For me, it was the family support. Because I am a very independent person. I'm the oldest daughter. Like, I am very in my own lane.
Mm-hmm.
And I always knew, like, my family loved me, right? Like, that's just a given, but I don't feel like I realized the depth of it, and even with my friends, how much they loved me or what that loved really looked like until I was in the midst of that darkness and felt utterly alone, and it was just like, they were there for me 100%, but it was just like, I'm in my lane and I'm feeling these feelings, and they're there for me, but I just still feel alone, and so it was just kind of that similar feeling of just like, and every time I went to the temple, it was just like I was being hugged every time I went into that celestial room, and, um, even with those feelings of being alone, I just couldn't deny that there was something there.
So with like before you guys got engaged, like what was there any, like you said, you never fought or anything, like the relationship seems like it was going. So I think you talked about like this catching you off guard. Where had you been communicating with God when you made the decision to marry him? Like, what was that? Where was God in Christ in the decision to get married? And then what was that
Yeah.
after effect of him breaking up with you?
So, and I think that's where a lot of the anger came from later once I kind of had settled into everything that had happened. But I came home from my mission and like every missionary is like, "Oh, I'm gonna get married," right? And I was like that, but I don't think I was serious about it. I came from parents that got married at 25 and 27, so very late for the Mormon culture. And I very much wanted to be like that. I wanted to go throughout my college experience and party and have a good time and just not worry about it. And so when I had met this kid and had felt this oh crap moment, I really like you. Um, and things started progressing, I just started going to the temple a lot, like I did, and I would just ask questions to God of like, "Does this is this something I should reconsider? Like, is this someone I should kind of give my eternity to and not worry about making it to 25 and waiting till marriage of um, for those kinds of important moments of my life?" And I had felt like I had gotten the answer, like, "This is it. Please marry him," kind of thing. And, um and everything had felt like that. I was like, we have a lot of the same morals. Um, Again, I think there were like definitely looking back, there were some little red flags of just having different opinions in the church. And I think that's normal. Like my husband and I now have that. And like I feel like it is kind of more natural as we've talked about it for men to be more like letter of the law in the gospel and women are more spiritually led. And that's not with every man and woman, but I think it's pretty common to be that way. Um, and I think instead of us discussing those, he just kind of let it slide rather than like having a conversation about it. And so it just built up so much that when it all happened, it just fell to pieces. But yes, I did feel like I had an answer from God that I could marry him, and I think that's when we broke up, it was so hard for me to like people would be like, "Oh, this man chased me and said it was an answer from God that we would get married," and I just felt totally off guard, and I felt like a little stabbed because I had felt like I had gotten an answer from God. And I felt like those stories were just like, "Oh, they're one-sided, so they're not true." And like whenever people say that now, I kind of like feel for them of just like, I think God can give us answers that will be your right choice, but might not end up in the way that you're thinking, and it's still something that's gonna grow you and become closer to God for it.
Well, there's two people too involved in a relationship, and they could both, you know, I think that personal revelation is it's personal. Like you couldn't receive personal revelation for him, and he couldn't for you, and so God, you asked God, and he told you yes. But if he wasn't willing to be a willing participant in that, then like you can't take away his agency, which
Exactly.
doesn't make it hurt any less. But that's probably really confusing in the moment.
Yeah.
So going back to, and we're kind of jumping around, but you said you felt like it was your fault for a while. So how did you, which is definitely a tool that the adversary uses to, you know, whatever it is, whether we're caught in addiction or trial or something really hard happens or your fiance breaks up with you. I think there's always this, the adversary, I think, works his way in and is like, how do I make this their fault and make them want to fall away from God, to make them feel worthless? So like, what did you have feelings of worthlessness, and what eventually led you out of this, oh, it's not my fault? So like what led you, I mean, you mentioned the temple a lot, maybe talk about that, but like what was the factor that led you out of that first part of it?
Well, I think my biggest red flag, and I'll admit it, is that I've always had some, like, self-consciousness about feeling worthless and not feeling
Mm.
like I maybe am the person that people talk me up to be. Um, and so when that was kind of hit again, especially from someone that I deeply cared about, um, was expressing that I'm not as worth as much as like he had thought I was, that was very heartbreaking to say the least. but I had done a lot of emotional processing. I have an aunt that has that gift to do it, and I think that is probably the thing that worked on me the most, especially to lift that heart pain of being able to breathe. But I did have an experience in the temple one day. I was in the Draper Temple, I think it was. Um, I had gone with my grandma, and she's the sweetest old lady, but the eternal mirrors on the ceiling room are super important to me. Like, I have 2 adoptive siblings, and we gotta go into the temple with them, and then when you go into the ceiling, like, after the ceiling, you get to stand as a family or as a couple in front of those eternal mirrors and just look into eternity, and, like, I always thought that was so cool, and I can't wait to do that with my person. Um, and so I never did ceilings with any boyfriends or anything because I wanted to look in those mirrors with my husband only. And, um, they have sometimes those, like, eternal mirrors in the celestial room, and they do in Draper. So I was in the celestial room in Draper, and, like, I my grandma was like, "Hey, let's go." And we were walking out, and I just had this impression to just, like, look into the mirror. And, um, I looked into the mirror, and it was eternal mirrors, and he just said, "Even as you are for eternity, you're as worth as much as you need me to be." And, like, that sent me into tears immediately. Um, and I think that is when it started to lift and, like, for me to start recognizing it, and self-talk is just so powerful, and I still have a hard time with it, but I think, like, God sends gentle reminders every once in a while of how much we're worth, and it's crazy how much we doubt ourselves sometimes because over and over again, especially in scriptures, like, it it repeats how much we are worth, and we are children of God, and we're powerful beings, and I think it's easy for me to look at other people and see that, and I hate when other people bring themselves down, but personally, like, it's hard, you know? And so, I think little by little, there was definitely little moments, especially of people in support, but that temple moment was a big one for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I definitely got goosebumps when you were saying that. I think it's the spirit testifies that that is true. I do think it's so hard to remember our worth and not like the worth that the world gives us, but specifically that God given, unchangeable, infinite worth that the adversary works so hard to ruin for us. And there's truly nothing we can do to change that. Sin doesn't change worth. God does want us to repent and turn back to Him, but like, especially this where you didn't do anything wrong, like your worth was, God didn't see you any different. And so I think that's such a beautiful moment that He was able to that you were able to have in the temple and that you were able to be like, okay, like God's telling me this, like it must be true. So, with the temple, why was the temple like, you're mad at God or mad at the situation, mad at him, like, why is the temple the place that you turn to? Like, why not turn away from God? Why not, like, why keep going towards God when you feel that, hey, I feel like I got this answer from you. I got this, I prayed to you, I got this answer. Why? And then things don't work out the way that you wanted them to. Because I mean, when you get engaged, that's not a little thing. Like that's like a, hey, we're gonna do this forever. Like that's what we believe in the church, is that we're sealed together for eternity. So why go to the temple? Like why is that your first place that you went to? And a lot, like I think a lot of people have a tough time getting to the temple because life is so busy. So in the midst of this tornado or storm of your life, like why run to the temple?
Um, so the temple, I would say, like, is the strongest foundation of my testimony. I had amazing friends in high school like you, where we would go to do baptisms all the time. Especially like my good friend Karina, like we went at least once a week in high school and we would
Hmm.
skip some of our classes to go. Like that's just what we did. And like that especially was at a time where I was figuring out the church. That's when my mom left the church. And so um that was something that always stayed a constant. Like, even if I didn't go to Sunday for whatever reason, I was just choosing not to or whatever, but, um, like, I always went to the temple. That is somewhere where, like, that was just a constant in my life, and then as I went with high school friends, I started going with my cousins, and my grandma would take us to get dessert afterwards, and, like, um, so that was just something that I felt very strongly about, like, if nothing else is true, I know the temple is true kinda thing, you know? And I know people feel differently and people have different pillars that are higher, and that's fantastic, but the temple is where I feel that the most. And so, I hadn't like, I had gone a lot when we were dating and everything, and as the wedding was coming up, I started to go maybe once a month at that point in time. And so I wasn't going as often, and as soon as, like, I it got broken off, like, I had just this feeling to just go back again to the temple, and it isn't where I necessarily wanted to be at first, especially since he had broken up with me in the celestial room. I didn't go into the
Yeah.
celestial room for the longest time. I think it took me about
Mhm.
a year to go into the cedar celestial room again. Um, but, um other temples, it was fine, I was able to go in that celestial room. So I did baptisms a lot when I was in Cedar, and then when I moved back up home with my parents for the break, that I started going to other temples, but just that constant of having, what, like, people find the scriptures to be their strong part or prayer or anything like that, but the temples was that for me.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's super cool because they're obviously all like, Sunday church service and the temple and scriptures and all the different factors. They're definitely all part of the gospel, part of the church. But I do think and they're all important. And I don't think
Mhm.
any of them have any more importance than others. But the temple is like one of the foundations of the church, and so I think that's just so beautiful that you found a place of peace, which is what it's supposed to be. It's the house of the Lord. It's like all the temples say that in them, the house of the Lord, holiness to the Lord. Like that's what it is. It's this place we're supposed to go. So I think that's really cool. Um, so obviously I know the story. So then after a while, I know he came back into your life for a season. Do you want to talk about that of
Yeah.
what changed? Because so far to this point, God has told you you have worth, and I think you've started to maybe come out of the darkness a little bit, and then he's back in your life. What happened there? Was there any communication while you were figuring things out? Like, why did he come back into your life?
Yeah.
Kind of, what's the next part?
So, also during that time, I forgot to mention this, I got a lot of priesthood blessings, and my uncle has the most amazing gift for priesthood blessings of anyone I've ever met. He's so detailed and, like, things I wouldn't even tell him, he was just able to say, and so I probably got one once a week, just because being able like, again, like, I wasn't able to hear the spirit in my personal day unless I was in the temple or getting a priest or blessing, so that was just, like,
Mm.
my direction for life. And one of the blessings that I had received, it said that, this person, the guy that broke up with me, he and I still have an opportunity to have a relationship, whether friends or more, and to share my testimony with him. So I was so nervous to even text him. I started writing him emails weekly and he would not respond to me, but I wrote him an email every week of this is my testimony. And like I would share sections of my testimony with him or like my weekly studies. And it wasn't until we had gotten back, probably February, it was February because I had gotten back from a film trip, where he messaged me and said, "Thanks for sharing me your testimony. Like, would you want to go and talk?" And so we started talking, and he's had said, like, "I think I made a mistake. Like, let's work on this. Like, I want to be there for you. I'm so sorry." And um, at that time, I had just decided that I was going to move to Montana with my cousin for the summer and work up there and just kind of get away from the world a little bit. And so
Which
I
is
told
not
her,
close to Cedar.
"No, not at all."
Yeah,
And
that's hours and hours away.
it is, like, it's 8 hours away. And so um, we had been hanging out again, like, reading like, I was like, "'Kay, like, if you're serious about this, we're gonna start reading the scriptures every day together." And I bought us a Book of Mormon, and we started reading it together. Um, but every once in a while, he would go into these anxiety panics of like, I don't know, like this isn't right. Like I still feel like we're on opposite levels. And I'm just like, but it was never specific things. It was just like broad, like we're just not on the same level. Um, and I was like, okay, well, if you really want to work this out while in Montana, like let's still call and talk and have Bible scripture studies. And he was like, okay, but I'm only gonna call you once a week. And that should have been my biggest red flag that he wasn't willing to have a relationship. Um, but yeah, so and to kind of go into the ending of that, I had to tell a little backup. I started taking an institute class called Divine Gift of Forgiveness, and that is where I met my
Mm.
now husband. And when I got into that class the first day, the professor just was like, "This is what this class is. We're reading this book. Like, I'm so excited to share it with you." And I went up to him after this class and I was like, "I'm in this position. I'm recently broken off with an engagement. I'm not really in a mood of like forgiveness, but I really felt like I
Yeah.
needed to take this class." And he was like, and I was like, "But after what you said today, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for this class yet." And he was like, "Stick in it for another 2 weeks and then we'll talk again." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give it 2 weeks." And like, it's every other day. So I'm going twice a week so 4 times in 2 weeks. Like, that's not hard. Um, but the second day of class, this beautiful man walks in, and I just look back and I'm sitting at the front, and I just turned around and said, "God, if he's the reason that I am here, please let it be known." Um, and he sat next to me, and we started talking and sharing, and we ended up going to Dairy Queen almost every week, talking about the book. And this was while I was trying to work things out with this other guy, and um, this my now husband was dating another girl at the time who I just left for her mission, but they were still trying to make it work. And so I wasn't ever worried about it,
The
being on
timing
our
wasn't
flirting
there for
side.
either of you at this
Yeah,
point.
we were just good friends, and we would go climbing every once in a while, and we had mutual friends. And so we would just kind of see each other, and like it was just a really good friendship. But it just kind of faded because I went to Montana. Um, And so fast forward, I went to Montana. We were calling once a week. There was one time where my ex-fiance had like called me and just kind of like anxiety attack again of like, I don't know if this is worth it. And I was just like, okay, let's
Just
give
talking
it.
to you every week?
Yeah. Like once a week. He was like, I'm happier, I think, when I'm not calling you. He said something along those lines.
Mm.
And so I was like, let's sit on this a week. I had a wedding for my cousin that weekend that went to, and like they had something in their vows of just like everything seems easier with you. And that one kind of hit me hard. And I got another priesthood blessing from my uncle because he had come up because it was that side of the family for this wedding. And he gave me a blessing. And then I had a panic attack and called this guy of just like, I don't know where I'm at. Like, this isn't easy anymore. And I had asked him 2 weeks before too if he wanted to fly up to Montana, and I said, "I'll pay for your ticket and everything. Like, I would just love to share this time with you." And he said, "No, I don't think that's good." And I was like, "Okay." Um, so my now husband, I can say his name, Kyle, texted me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I'm coming up to Jackson Hole this weekend. Like, is there any way we could make it work so I could see you?" And I was like,
This is the exact same weekend?
this is the exact same weekend.
Wow.
Um, and I just said, I just was talking to God and I was like, how is a man who is like purely my friend is willing to come and see me, but a man who's trying to work to be my eternal companion is not willing to come see me? And so I
Mm.
called my ex fiance, and I just said, "Hey, like I don't think this is working." And I was just like, "My presence is a blessing, and if you're not willing to recognize that now, I don't know how you're willing to recognize that for eternity." And we just kind of argued for a couple hours, and that was it. And I said, "Please don't ever talk to me or text my family. Like, we're done. This is it." And um and that was it. That had been the last time I had talked to him at that for a couple months. Um And I wasn't able to see Kyle because my cousin and I were going up to Canada the weekend. He was going up to Jackson Hole, and that's totally okay. And things just kind of fizzled until we went back to school and we started talking and we were both single again. And the rest is kind of history there. Um,
So what did that do to your process of forgiveness of your ex fiance? Like what obviously you like probably started and then you start trying to talk again, and maybe that did that confuse the forgiveness process, or did you have to restart? Like have you forgiven him now? Like forgiveness is, I think, arguably one of the hardest things that we're asked to do. It's so, especially in this case, I think a lot of times I think we think we're right.
I
And it's
feel
like maybe we're not. But in this case, like you were just trying your hardest, and not that you're perfect or anything, because none of us are, but you were trying as hard as you could to make this relationship work because you loved him and you cared about him. And so what does that do for forgiveness?
yeah.
And
So
does anger come back? Like,
it does. In all
yeah.
honesty, like I think I have forgiven him as a person and everything that went down. Like looking back, especially in the position that I am, having the husband that I do, like I'm so grateful for everything that went down to find Kyle because he is the most amazing person for me. Like
Hmm.
I need Kyle in my life. um and on that side, like
Everyone
I
loves
have
Kyle.
forgiven this ex for kind of the things that went down to get to that point. But like we still go to school together. Like I see him on campus. We're both art majors and I can't look him in the eye and that's hard for me. And it's not because of like it's not anger. It's just every time that I do see him, those feelings like still come back and of just
of
feeling
work
worthless.
of your worth.
Yeah. And like I know mentally and like kind of physically that it's just like it's not him. It's not like I know I always have the saying that assume positive intentions. And I know whatever he was doing, like maybe he was trying to hurt me, but I really, really doubt it. Like I do know he is a good person. That's why I fell for him in the first place, you know? And I know that person is still there. And like I just have to assume that whatever went down, it just was not it. And that's how it ended up. And that's totally okay. But I still feel hurt and I still feel like I was betrayed a lot. And you know, like I don't ever want him to feel like he is I think of him as the worst person. I don't. Again, he's still a good person, but the feelings that happened in that time period still hurt and it's just kind of a day by day thing. And I think it's not anger towards him anymore. It's just kind of anger towards the feelings that were felt.
So I mean, that's hard work to do, to separate whether it's someone's intentions or their actions from their infinite worth as a child of God. Like that is essentially what I think you're saying. It's like he also has infinite worth, just like God told you had infinite worth. And so he, whatever his intentions were, that doesn't take away his worth. And so it's more just seeing him as a human being who struggles as well, but not necessarily saying that what happened to you was okay, but that you can move forward without him. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, 100%.
So now, Kyle. I mean, I know Kyle. I love Kyle. He's the freaking best.
Yeah.
I've I've talked to Kyle about my struggles, and he's always gives great advice. So you stop talking to your ex fiance, and then you go back down to school after working in Montana for the summer, and then is it just Kyle's there? Like, does it, or you're like, oh, I think I want to be with Kyle, or is there still a lot of confusing emotions where, you're trying to forgive, you're trying to forget, you're trying to feel your worth, you're trying to follow God and do school, and like things were not like one thing about Naomi that people should know is she works 1,000 jobs. Like she is such a hard worker and she's always busy, especially in college. She was always just on the grind doing things. So it's not like she never stopped and, you know, gave up, which I think is very, very admirable, especially when things got really hard. She still kept going. But all this stuff is going on in your life. What happens next? And
Yeah. So I moved back down to see her, and my roommate Morgan was down here, and we immediately just started hanging out again. And um, she had known that I was hanging out with Kyle the previous semester, and so she had just asked about it. And was like, "So are you guys still hanging out? Like, is he single? Like, how do you feel about going on dates and stuff like that?" And I was just like, "I don't know. Maybe I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll see if we I don't know. I don't know." It's like, I don't know was probably my favorite answer at the time for anything in my life, you know? And
yeah.
so I was just like, "Okay, I'll reach out to him." And we ended up going on a hike that week, and he was living in St. George down the time at the time doing plumbing. And so he had come up and we went on a hike and just started talking, and he had mentioned that he was single. And like the joke
Mm.
is that as soon as he told me he was single, I just wanted to kiss him. Like that was kind of a natural instinct. Did not happen, but like like I was just like, "Oh my gosh, maybe this is it. Like maybe my prayer from Institute has come true." Um, but I was still feeling like guilty that I couldn't hang out with someone because while like, completely knowing that I was never gonna get back with my ex, he was still on my mind. Like, this is someone that I had hung out with for a year straight every day, at least, you know? And
And we're planning to spend your life with.
exactly. And so I still thought about the guy a lot. And, um, Kyle another amazing thing about Kyle and our story is, like, he did not know about anything that was happening in my life. Like, he did not know
Mm.
about the ex, he didn't know about the heartbreak. I was kind of anorexic because I had lost 25 pounds after the engagement, and I just couldn't eat anything. And so, like, he would make comments of like, "Are you eating anything?" But, like, he actually didn't know anything that was going on. I was just like,
Mm.
"Oh, I'm just naturally skinny." And, um, but that was, like, the part of the Kyle that I loved, was just, like, I didn't have to go and like, he didn't have to look me in the eye and go, "Oh, are you okay?" Like, it was just, like, a conversation that could start up, and it had nothing to do with about our lives, you know? Um, and so
He wasn't pitying you.
exactly.
He was just treating you like Naomi.
Mhm.
There was no and he just cared about you. You could tell.
Exactly. And, like, we talk about it now and we look back and he'll be like, "I mean, I could recognize that you weren't, like, full of energy or excited about a lot of things, but I just thought you were just a chill, kinda low maintenance person." And,
But you are.
thanks. But I also feel like I like to have a good time, I like to party, you know, and I like to be on the high energy, and ADHD is there, but just, like
Yeah.
Um, like, I was just such a shy person at that point in my life. And so anyways, when we had gone on this hike and he told me he was single, I had then told him my situation. And, like,
Mm.
we had just started talking about it and started getting deep into life, and next thing you know, we were flirting and hanging out every single day. And we started going back to DQ, like, we would go to DQ and Institute and sit in our booth, eat ice cream, and talk about God, and we started doing that more often. And, um, like, he knew very much where I was in my mind and thinking about this ex-person in my life, and he knew that was still there, but he was still just very persistent in being a gentleman and making sure, like, he was there for me. Um And then just one thing led to another, and, like, it seems like a short time-wise, like, we started dating in September, and we got married in December, and that is very,
So
very
you started
fast.
dating like almost a year after
Mhm.
your ex broke up with you, or a little less than a year, right?
Yeah, a little less than a year. I
Okay.
actually got engaged a year after, just before, um, like, almost to the day. So I got broken up with on December 6th, and Kyle proposed November 26th. So almost
Oh
a
wow.
year until I was engaged twice. But yeah, it was very fast, but I think, like, when you're spending 24/7 with a person, like, a lot of conversations were had, and, like, he had just broken up with his girlfriend for, like, his college experience, and we're both moving on from that, and yes, that kinda sounds like a red flag, I think, to a lot of people of, like, "Oh, you're just trauma bonding for things," and Kyle and I talk a lot of, like, how we are so lucky for how much we're still in love with each other, being married for 2 years now, um, being past the whole trauma thing and just still being so much in love because I think we really did get lucky and that is like, God was totally there for that. I cannot deny that.
Well, and you, yeah, obviously you can't just hearing your story, like you've seen how God has been weaving things in and out of your life and how he's been there the whole time. But like I think the other thing is like God loves effort and like you were both making effort and I think a relationship takes so much effort. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you found someone who is willing to put in an equal amount of effort because a relationship is hard. Like I've struggled in them before too. Like it's a very hard, challenging thing, especially when hard things in your life are happening. You might not be making the clearest decisions or doing the best things, but it's just this. I think it's so beautiful that you're able to be there for each other and that I don't know. I have so much respect for Kyle. I just want to say that he's such a good guy, and I'm just happy that he's there for you, especially after all of that. Um, I just as we're wrapping up here, I want to like thank you for sharing, first of all. I mean, you have so much like happiness and light, especially talking about something that was very, very dark for you. And I think that goes to show what your testimony's done for you. And like the Naomi from like 2022 versus now is very different. And not to say that there hasn't been other hard things, but my my my, my final question that I'm going to ask everyone who comes on the podcast is what what would you say is the biggest or some of the biggest lessons you learned through it all and where did you feel God through it all and like how has your relationship with Christ been strengthened through all of this and life in general.
Yeah. I think my biggest takeaways from that experience is love is not an equation. I think especially people our age get caught up in this moment of like, oh, if I do like it's kind of the exact obedience thing. Or if I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm gonna find my eternal companion. And I don't think that's necessarily it. I think God hands you your eternal companion when you have hit a personal growth kind of point. And um, like for Kyle and I needed to be the person I became after this experience
Mm,
because I don't think we would have worked before that. Um, and so just become your own person, like be with God. That is probably the biggest takeaway for that for me. And the other is just to look at God in those situations. Like it's not easy. My great grandparents on both sides are alcoholics, and that runs deep for everyone. Like all my aunts and everyone has probably had a sip of alcohol in their life, and none of them are alcoholics, but like addiction is just strong in our family. Um, and I would be lying if just like I was never tempted to just walk into a store and feel like I could numb myself, and I've never done it, but it's just like that feeling was there for me. And so it wasn't easy, but looking to God is way more worth it and way more satisfying in the end game than anything else that you're gonna try. So yeah, was there another question with her?
that's perfect.
Okay,
That's perfect. Thank you.
okay.
Just thank you so much for sharing and sharing your heart and being willing to kind of lay it all on the table. Like this is, I was there when it was happening, like I said, and it was hard stuff. Like I, we all have our hard stuff, but like it's definitely, I think that your story has this ability to show hope. Especially, I think it's beautiful that you're married and you've been married for 2 years to Kyle. Like it shows that like here's this low thing, and then here's this amazing thing, greatest blessing of your life, like you always talk about. And that's powerful. So thank you so much. And I
Thanks.
appreciate you being here. And I appreciate everyone who is listening to this as I'll probably say it for a while, but I'm figuring this out. This is a confusing, hard thing for me to figure out, but it's people like Naomi and people who like are willing to take the time to share with me that they're doing all the work. I'm just here to get the conversation out. So, uh, thank you for being here, and I'll catch y'all.
Thanks, Larry. It was a good time.
Peace.